council meeting, right?
No.
Don't we have to close for any of that?
Keep on going.
Yeah, the agenda is a little long this month.
Yes.
Thank you. When you have any control over it.
Like I said, we can handle it in one motion.
If you can craft a motion, we would all entertain it.
I move that we approve everything except the stuff that I don't approve of.
You'd probably get a second on that pretty easily, too. We'll leave it up to Jenny to sort it out.
Yeah, I read the minutes and I look at that. Did I say that or did somebody else say that?
Well, he just asked, I just reminded him that was a meeting and that we're waiting for him.
You did respond,
He probably fell asleep watching television.
Yeah.
yeah.
He said this has been, this summer, ever, for this summer.
Yeah,
It just hasn't, it just never stopped. It's just been,
it's good for business.
yeah, but he said it would be nice to know where,
Well, it'll end about Christmas time for a couple of weeks, and then we'll just start picking up again from there.
and then it'll get really slow, and they'll complain that it's too slow.
Next recession.
Yeah, I just think there was still just a lot of pent-up demand from, crappy years of 2008 through 2015.
And along with that, a different sort of way, spring was a month late, so
Yeah.
there's some impact on that with
Yeah, condensed.
stuff, yeah.
The economy is good.
I guess the economy is good.
Yeah.
We will. Look to get started. Ross will probably roll in here fairly soon. So I would like to call to order the special council meeting for July 18th, 2018. It is 6:04 p.m. and we're here tonight to get some information and hold a public hearing for the proposed TIF at what is common, what? No? What do we,
This is our budget workshop
oh,
meeting.
Yep.
well, sorry.
It's okay.
I had that
We're
on
ready.
my stuff. So the budget meeting workshop, geez, I'm pushing the agenda. I do want to get done. So, so pardon me. So Jenny, you want to take the lead on this and give us direction as to where you're at and everybody's at?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, members of the council. I have prepared tonight a memo and a couple of pieces of information for the council to discuss. I did notice this meeting as a special meeting in case the council was ready to make some decisions on a couple of items relative to salaries and benefits for 2019. So I will walk through the memo and the information that I put together for the council to have some understanding, try to make it as clear as you can in a memo, but sometimes we get lost in a lot of the details. As the council knows, we have 2 union contracts and then the remaining, at-large non-union employees with the city. Both union contracts are settled and in place for 2019. Our supervisor union, their COLA percentage for next year is 2%. And for our Teamsters, police officers, the COLA percentage is 1.5%. And so one of the questions tonight to discuss, kind of get some feedback from you on, is regarding to what the COLA percentage increase you'd like to see incorporated into the budget for the non-union employees. So I provided 3 scenarios. We'll go through that in a minute. But that's the first item that I have for you tonight. The second item is to discuss the amount of the city health insurance contribution for next year. I did provide 3 scenarios. I'll walk through those as well. One of them I didn't provide, I probably should have, was just to keep it the same as this year. That's always a consideration, discussion point to have, is just to leave things the same as they are. And then the third item is to discuss my recommendation for our part-time staff. And that is, instead of moving them a step on January 1st, as we've started to do with everyone else now that we fully incorporated this Springstead compensation study, is to move them to the next step upon them completing 2,080 hours of work, which is 1 year's equivalent. So that would be consistent for all staff, that they just, the hours they put in, once they hit that point, then they would move a step. So that would save some movement, some cost on the city side, and be a little more consistent for the staff. So I will start with, find the sheet. Our cost of living wage adjustment information. I'll walk through the first line for you so you can kind of understand the spreadsheet that I put together. I did include a 1% cost of living increase, but I also did the 1.5% and 2%, that those would be more consistent with the union contract settlements that we have. But if you look at the 1% cost of living, you can see that we have for the general fund and our enterprise funds, which is the pickle, spirits, and our sewer fund. Our total wage costs would be there, so the $862,000 for the general fund, and then the $524,000 for the enterprise funds. If you go across to the right, you'll see a dollar increase from the prior year. So a 1% cost of living would mean a $15,000 increase to the general fund budget compared to the current year. And then as a percentage, it would be a 1.8% increase for the general fund compared to the current year. The percent of budget column is just a percent of the total general fund budget, just to have a perspective on those dollars there. So you can see that the 1.5% COLA equals, I'm just going to go to the percentage column, an overall 2% increase for the general fund. That's already including the cost of living adjustments for the unions. That's including everyone. So 1.5% cost of living for the non-union employees equals a total overall for all employees of a 2% for the general fund. Does that make sense? Tracking?
Say that again.
A 1.5% COLA for our non-union employees equals a 2% overall increase for all employees when I factor in the union contracts that are already settled.
Gotcha.
And everyone is assumed a step movement, which for non-union staff, that could be a discussion item if the council wants as well, but I did make that assumption.
So the 2.2% does cover the step increases?
It does cover the step increases, yes. So I'm gonna pause on this information and just reference quickly, I also provided you the consumer price index for the Midwest region through June of this year. So you can see the percentage trending up from 1.6 in January to 2.5 in June. I would guess likely that's going to land somewhere in that 2% range by the end of the year. That's just kind of a guess, but just to give you another perspective on what's happening, in the region for how to balance what's going on.
Question. I'm on page 3 under the 2% COLA, and I go over to the far right,
Yes.
and it says 19.02% increase, but if I go to 1.5, it's just above it, it's 0.17. Is that just an error? Should
That
be
is
0.19?
0.19, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
So last year, last year is when we did the Springstead, right? Or is that 2 years ago now?
2 years ago now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's fully implemented now, and plus last year we had to make a bunch of minor adjustments here and there to get everybody
Yeah.
rolling correctly. But yeah.
It seems to me that we went through the whole process and got all the numbers, and we increased everybody to bring them where they should be. That was the big step, and now I think at this point, we just have to maintain them where they are.
That's what I've
So I know at the airport, they were looking at 2% in their proposed budget, and I'm thinking about 1.5% here should maintain where they are here. That'd be my guess.
Well, I think another factor that we kind of need to take a look at, if we so desire, is any cost in medical that the city may want to look at too. So I think overall, the two of them tie together, so.
And I can certainly speak to that, because that's a great point. It's sort of kind of balancing between the two. So why don't I do that briefly, and then we can follow up with questions. So the health insurance piece. In your packet for tonight's regular meeting, we will have, there's a recommendation from the Personnel Committee to switch from Health Partners to Medica based on the percentages that we are seeing for renewal. The last page in your packet shows the Health Partners renewal numbers for the 3 plans, and then the Medica renewal numbers. Most of the plans are very consistent, although they're not exactly apples to apples, just because of the companies and how they work. Careful, Mike. Because just of how the carriers, offer their plans. As a staff group, when we met with our insurance agent, they did as a group feel that it would be in their, that they would like to request to move to Medica, and the Personnel Committee did discuss it and is making that recommendation to the council. So we'll have that for you on the regular agenda tonight. But in looking at costs for health insurance for next year, we can see that for our first plan, the cost will go up 1.2%. Again, if it's not quite apples to apples, but it's pretty close. 16.72% for our second plan and 5.34% for our third plan. When I go back, if I can go back here and look at our health insurance, so I did a similar look at the health insurance. If I start at the bottom, I did a $50 health insurance increase per month, because that's consistent with what we've done the past 2 years, is added $50. That would result in an extra $12,870 for general fund staff, percentage increase over the prior year 2018 cost of 7.39%. I did a $25 per month health insurance increase. That's $8,670 for the general fund, just under 5%, just to do half of what we've done before. And then for the $40 option, what I did was I took those 3 plans that we have, and I took a snapshot here of, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see. I took a snapshot of what my spreadsheet looks like. Sorry, that's not going to work for you guys. It's really small. Of what the impact is for each plan, for each person, for each plan. So let's just say in theory this first line is me, for an example. Based on what I'm paying right now for whatever plan I'm on, if I go to the new Medica A plan, the cost is actually $20 less per month. If I go to the Medica B plan, the cost would be $111.87 more. And if I go to the C plan, that's $26.76 less. As you can see, pretty consistently, that B plan is the most expensive increase, and then the other 2 are decreases. So what I did was I took this B plan and said, okay, let's just take this cost and let's take 50% of it. So I have $55.93. Just assuming, well, let's just say the city and the employee are going to split the difference on that increase. So I took those numbers for every person and I did an average. And my average increase, half of the increase, 50% of that average increase is $41.12. That's how I landed on the $40 increase per month from a city perspective. It's about half of the most expensive plan increase, and thought maybe that's a middle of the road option.
How many singles do we have?
Just gonna ask that.
How many singles?
Well, you mean how many of the B?
No, I mean, as our employees, how many are on the, just single, not a family plan?
Let me think if I have that. We have about,
Because basically, the family plan, I mean, the single plan is at almost at no cost to the employee. Because
I'd say it's
the
about half and half.
contribution covers the cost of the plan.
I would say it's about half and half. There are
About half
some,
and half.
because it's an age-based premium,
Yeah.
as you get older, the premiums are geared to be higher.
That's
So,
discrimination.
It's America.
Should be the same as if we were like 4 years old.
Yeah, right.
Well, and then B, that's an HSA.
yes.
That's a, yeah.
And how
that-
many of those do we have?
All but two of our, those who are on the plan, all but two are on either the B or the C plan, which are the HSA plans.
Okay.
We only have two people that are on the A plan, which is a non-HSA.
Okay.
The B would probably be a Medica's platinum plan, or is it a silver?
Yep.
plan?
No, it's 100%, it's a gold
So
plan,
it's
yep.
Platinum.
Yep.
That's one of their platinum plans. That's their high one. B or C is probably a silver plan, a silver HSA.
Yeah, I've got it here.
And then the other one is their bronze.
Oh, hold on.
So
Yes, gold, silver, bronze, yeah.
have you had any feedback from the staff about if they would switch
Amount.
from A to B, or C, or would they, or was everybody kind of thinking they'd stay in the same plan, or not? They didn't really get any feedback.
I really haven't had feedback from them on if they would switch or move to a different plan from where they are now, or if they would just translate over, so. Yes. So I will go back to this summary just to have that information here. You know, I think it's, just that balancing act of wages and insurance and what the council feels comfortable with.
So John and I did meet with Jenny, and we kind of went through this almost 2 weeks ago, it feels like, anyway. And just, you know, we kind of just breezed, I'd say in a sense, breezed through it. You know, employees, staff saw the opportunity if we switched to Medica, it would potentially lower their insurance. So it seemed like everybody was pretty much on board with that. There wasn't any real concern by any staff that I'm aware of that switching from one company to the other. So that's kind of where our recommendation came from.
Are there any employees who are not on any medical plan that we offer? They have a spouse and they're on their
Yep.
spouse's plan.
Yes.
So when you do your calculations, are you taking them out of the mix or leaving them in?
I am only accounting for those who are currently taking insurance, that they will continue.
Okay,
So there's no
there's no overlap.
added
Okay.
assumption, which could be made.
What is the recommendation of the Personnel Committee?
For which part?
The health plan?
Health plan? Well, to go with the Medica plan rather than and then, you know, there's the ABC.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a
I
choice.
think
their choice, though.
you're wondering if were you wondering, are we making a recommendation?
Well, proposed
on the,
insurance
Dollar
adjustment
amount.
fund, 25, 40, or 50.
oh, we didn't,
You didn't get into that?
That we didn't,
Okay.
that we didn't discuss. No, we thought we'd wait for council to do that. I mean, in a sense, you know, with the wage increases that are happening and, you know, I personally don't have a problem with not increasing the city's portion of that at all this year.
Of the health insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think back to last year when we, in a sense, kind of found a stinger, so to speak, when we found out that there was, for the next years, there was a pay increase, plus there was step increases, and, you know, probably averaging, I don't know, I think a number that is in my head, I don't know how accurate it is like about 5.5% overall pay increases.
3%.
The steps are
between each
built in
step.
at 3, but then if you add a cost of living,
And then cost of living, so, you know, so each year, roughly about 5% pay increase. And medical, by switching, will, I don't know if it's, doesn't really stay the same, some will save money, some will, it'll be more expensive, but that's their choice. So, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to staying where we're at with the city's contribution for 2019.
Is the health insurance adjustment taxable to the employee?
No,
No?
no.
Comes out pre-tax.
Their share of the premium is deducted pre-tax, so,
And then there's an adjusted gross that they get taxed.
yeah.
Okay.
I know typically the people that are taking Plan B, the more expensive of the two, are typically your older employees or people that have a health issue where you sit and figure out it's cheaper to pay the premium than it is the 80 or the 20% or the 30% of every bill. And those are also not always, but tend to be your people that are stepped out. Right now, I think we have one employee in the city that stepped out, so that employee doesn't see any more step increases. And then I think this year is the last for, I think there's one other employee, this is his last step, and then he'll be stepped out. So when you do get to that more expensive insurance angle, but you know, that can be a consideration, but it's, you know, it affects a minimal number of people too. And I guess I'd like to see our steps stay in sync with everything, so we don't have to go through the whole Springstead thing again.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess I could live with it too, being, you know,
Well, Mr.
Where it's
Mayor,
at.
to get off the dime on this, I'll move that the city council concur with the personnel committee recommendation to go with Medica for 2019 as opposed to Health Partners.
I think that's an agenda item for the regular meeting, isn't it? So you can just,
You can do that in the special meeting. It's an advertised meeting.
it's under the same subject matter we're talking about. If it was completely different, I'd say we should wait, but I'm sure that'd be fine.
one less agenda item off the list, I guess.
I'm okay with it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Do we need to decide on on all of this? Just from a budget standpoint, I'm assuming you need to know.
You surely don't have to decide. If you feel as though I could eliminate any of these options, one of the three from the wages, one of the three from the health insurance, that would definitely help, so that I maybe am working with two scenarios for the next budget meeting when I bring more of the full budget to the council. That would be okay. I will say the one caveat is, I know the staff is looking to make their selections. They have to make it by August 1st, and part of it is knowing for sure at least, but what the contribution is now likely won't go down, so from that standpoint, at least they have a floor that they can work on, so.
So I could live with eliminating the $50 health and the 2% COLA But
Well,
I,
either way, we know what all the scenarios are, so no sense in
well, true, we don't really have to either.
eliminating one. I think we should just try and
Yeah.
Pick
get her
one.
done. Yeah.
Can I, maybe I should do this in private, but I'm just going to stick my foot in my mouth as usual. Is there a way non-union employees could make a choice to either, if the city wanted to do something like allow them to decide, okay, I would rather see the city pay, let's just say COLA ends up being that's what we end up giving everybody's 1.5% increase. Instead of you giving me a 1.5% increase, you take what that would equal and put it towards my insurance. Could you do that?
Does that get covered?
Well, it
That's
would be a bookkeeping nightmare.
complicated, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But I'm
You're
just,
managing a lot of different grids.
Yeah.
because as a, see where,
Tax implications.
yeah,
Yeah.
but where it's just that I'm not in a bread line, but if I don't have to pay more for my insurance, then it kind of balances itself out. So, on my end, but it makes it hard for you. Okay.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
You
So we'll
want-
just-
You want a motion on the cost of living, or you want a straw vote or an inkling, or what do you want?
Whatever you'll share, I would love the
I guess
feedback.
What I'm leaning towards, I just think with the amount of steps in previous years' increases, I'm leaning towards the 1.5.
Okay.
I think from a health insurance standpoint, we've tried to do what we can in previous years to help that, but we've also made mention that we can't keep doing it forever. This year, without huge increases, I think might be a good year not to increase our contribution. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards.
I'd agree.
I would support that. The only thing I keep in mind is the only reason we're making these contributions is because we in the city haven't keep it up in the past, and it's not. And I would just say to keep that in mind, it's our fault.
Towards the
The city
insurance.
council, well, towards all the steps. And
Oh, right,
Had we kept
yes.
up with that, we wouldn't have had to take that.
Yes,
But,
I'd agree with that.
so I would just say to keep that in mind, that, yes, we have increased, but that's partly our fault. Not our fault, but previous council, the council's fault. But if you look at insurance on a whole, if you look at it, private sector, whatever, they're not. People are just having to pay that increase.
That brings up a bigger question I was going to bring up after we had voted on everything, is that how long can we afford to keep on increasing the cost for our share of the medical payment? Is there some point where we say, this is the limit, we're going to pay X? Or I don't think we can get out of a medical plan once we've established one, but I think we can put a ceiling on it. And I think that's, for next year, we should have some strong discussions on that type of a policy. If the way things are going, we
Yeah.
could have tremendous increases, and I don't know, how much can we absorb?
It's a question every employer has had to deal with for
Yeah.
the last number of years, and yes, that's happened a lot. A lot of employers have just said that's all we can do.
That's it.
And I mean, I've got no, it's unfortunate, but
I would suggest that a discussion about that issue could take place in February or March or April of next year, so that there's enough advanced warning if we decide to do something there. I just throw that out. I think it's an issue to at least be talked about.
At some point in time, you're going to, sorry, Fred.
No, I said whatever.
At some point in time, I think you're going to have to, and every employer is going to be faced with this, because it's going to hit government, obviously, as well as everyone else. The ACA has done no one any favors with insurance. And what you're looking at is insurance is going to be the wage fight and the safety fight that unions had back when they first formed. you may find ourselves in a position where we're going to have to say, this is the plan. It's an HSA plan. We will put X amount towards just like kind of like what we do now. And that's just going to be it. I mean, unless something happens out east, I think that's the future. Is there's not going to be a cafeteria style planning anymore because we can't afford it. We're going to be in that point where you can't just keep going. But
Well, could
should
we
be-
agree to put it on an agenda for February, March, or April sometime, just for discussion?
Oh, I think that's and that's a good time of year to do it.
Yeah.
Probably March, maybe February, but
Whatever.
you got the first of the year and kind of changes, whatever, and then kind of gets settled in. So, February, March would be,
Yeah.
Pretty good time to bring it up.
Well, not everybody knows, it's done and it's dealt with.
At least we'll be talking about it. We may not make any changes, but
Yeah.
we could
But at least it's reviewed, and then
Yeah.
if you do decide to make changes, everybody knows
in
and
advance.
get your lump and move on. So,
one thing that the new generation, I don't know if it's a generational thing or what it is, but one thing that people have to remember, when you get into public employment, it wasn't to get rich. It was usually because of benefits and job security, and you traded money for that. So at some point in time, they have choices to people. We all have a choice to make, and we have to make it. So 30 years ago, it wasn't an issue. You had first dollar insurance, and the county paid the whole thing.
Yeah.
Boy, sure wish I could go back. So, but HSAs are a good thing to look at in April too. It's a good thing for employees.
so we haven't answered your question yet, have we? That what we're having?
You,
Yeah.
1%.
I heard 1.5,
One and a half.
1.5, and,
Yeah.
and for now, we'll leave it at 0.
in the insurance benefit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think that's,
Well, I appreciate that. That's very helpful. Thank
Do we
you.
need to move on that, or no? This is just a suggestion to you at this point?
That's fine. We can, if you are firm and comfortable with moving forward with that, you could have a motion and we just incorporate that. Otherwise, you can just leave it at that for now, and I'll build it into the budget, and you can,
When are you going to ask us what kind of an increase or decrease we want for the entire budget?
we will talk about that in August. We will incorporate our new bond into that, so that will be,
No
in
any
there as well,
guidance-
so.
No guidance in advance, huh?
Well, what do you mean? September will be the big question, our preliminary levy, so we'll have time. The last question, so thank you for that. That gives me a good,
I guess, to finish that up.
okay.
Being as it does seem like it's pretty unanimous, I would entertain a motion and a second to just get it done with.
Or do we want to wait
Well, if it's just part of the overall,
It's part of
what
the
the
overall.
overall budget would be.
that we
Yeah.
don't back ourselves in the corner accidentally?
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Once we get all the
There's
numbers
some-
together, at least the department heads know exactly what we're
Yeah.
thinking.
Yep,
And if it can be proven otherwise, effective or whatever,
Yeah.
then we'll look at it.
sure.
And staff knows too.
But, yeah.
They can make their insurance decision.
Yep, yep. Perfect. The last time I had for you tonight was to discuss my recommendation for part-time staff and to move them upon completion of 2,080 hours instead of on January 1st, so that if an employee worked 800 hours in a year or 1,200 hours, that they would still stay at their step until they completed 1 year's worth of work, and then we would move them to the next step. Saves the city some wages instead of just automatically rolling them to the next step. And it just creates a little bit of fairness. That's, I worked more than you did, or I worked less, and I get the same bump, that kind of thing.
So incentive to stay a year too.
Yeah,
I don't.
That's
that
good,
makes
good
no
idea.
sense to me.
That's fine.
I mean, there's no sense in giving a wage before they earned it.
So that would be a policy
Yes.
change or addition?
yes, I would, if the council would support that with a motion, then I just use that as a process that the city has.
I'll make that a motion, I'll make a motion that we change part-time step to where they reach 2,080 hours from the current at the first of the year.
Second.
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Unanimous.
Great. I didn't know how long we would talk about wages and benefits, so that's all I have for budget tonight.
Very good.